Hello, this is Dr. K. Welcome to the video lecture for week 7. I'm going to go ahead and open the PowerPoint. This won't be a very long lecture, but I do want to mention a few things. The first one, in terms of what we are doing next week, just to give you an overview, on Monday, I'd like you to read the essay titled, rather a chapter titled, as he himself puts it, The Art of Quoting. This is from the Blue Book. We will be discussing this reading on Monday, so make sure to read in advance. On Wednesday, we will also discuss quoting and other strategies for reporting interviews, reporting what other people have said. The online class on Friday, or rather the one that I will upload before Friday, will involve you analyzing a sample interview report. Like I mentioned to you in class this week, I will give you an example of an interview report that a student has written for my class in the past, and so you get a better sense of what it looks like, and I'll ask you some questions about it. And that is what exercise 8 will be about. You will also have blog due next week. Okay, a few guidelines for your interview, just a couple of other things I wanted to mention to you for your own interview. Remember, the goal of your interview is for you to learn something about your topic, but also to present your findings to your audience. Like we talked about in class, you have to be always aware of the purpose of your assignments, to inform and educate your audience, make them care about some issue. You can also use your interviewee as a resource. For example, during the interview, you are welcome to ask this person for recommendations, for written sources, for other materials that you could use in your research. They may be able to give you suggestions. In terms of the length, I would say the interview should be probably about 20 minutes long. It probably shouldn't be 10, that might be not long enough, but 20 should be enough to give you all the information that you need to write the kind of report required for this assignment. You can definitely talk longer if you have the time, if they have the time, if the conversation is going great, that is fine, but I certainly won't require you to do a longer interview. You're also welcome and encouraged, like I mentioned, to record the interview, audio record the interview. If you do so, however, you should always double check with the interviewee in advance to see if they're okay with it. You wouldn't just record them without their knowledge or if they disagreed. Okay, the other thing I want to do is to look at exercise 7 and look at the instructions for that exercise, which are already uploaded to Blackboard. So I'm going to the week 7 folder. This exercise pertains to your reading that I asked you to do from the Blue Book. This is an essay titled No Need to Call by Sherry Turkle, and she discusses in this reading her formal and informal research about the impact that new technologies and social media have had on our communicative needs and our styles. So after reading this text, I want you to answer the following questions. There's 3 sort of short response questions, and there's 4th one, which is a little bit different. So look at the first question. Turkle was once optimistic about the potential for technology to improve human lives, but now she takes a more complex view. She's changed her opinion. She says it's a little bit more complicated than that. So what do you think she means by her title, No Need to Call? How does it reflect her opinion on this issue? What pitfalls, what are some drawbacks that she sees in our increasing reluctance to talk on the phone or face-to-face? What are some potential challenges that she thinks we're facing? I'd like you to discuss this issue in at least 4 sentences. The second question, the author reports on several formal interviews and informal discussions that she's had with others about the topic. So this is it's not an interview report because it's a collection of different reports on different interviews she has had. So I'd like you to take a closer look at what she learned from this one participant, Audrey. This is on pages 376 through 381. And just kind of skim those pages again. And in 4 to 5 sentences, summarize what the author learned about Audrey's experiences with technology and what are her thoughts about technology, this particular individual. Okay? Question 3. Now I want you to specifically examine pages 378 through 379. Just look at those now more closely. And on these pages, Turkle, again, she reports on what she learned from Audrey. And what I want you to look at now is the language that she uses. You will notice, hopefully, that she uses different kinds of words and phrases to report what her interviewee said. For example, on page 378, she uses the phrases, she argues, and by this means, a couple of phrases that, again, introduce something the person said without, right? It sounds more interesting than just saying, she said, she responded. It's a lot more engaging. So it allows you as a writer to more easily keep the reader's attention. And I'd like you to look at the rest of those 2 pages and find other reporting words and phrases that the author uses. So what is something else besides she argues and by this she means that the author uses to report the findings of the interview? I'd like you to list at least 3 different kinds of reporting phrases. There's several. The last question has to do with what we talked about in class on Wednesday. As stated in the short author bio on page 373, Turkle teaches in a program in Science, Technology, and Society at MIT, and she's very interested in how technology affects our lives and our language. So, okay, she's an expert on those things, and I'd like you to imagine that you're conducting a new research project about the effects of technology on our personal relationships. So this is your research right now for this purpose of this assignment. So imagine that Turkle has agreed to be interviewed by you for your research. And now we have to prepare for the interview. So I'd like you to formulate at least 5 open-ended questions and at least 5 follow-up questions. So for each open-ended questions, have at least 1 follow-up question, possibly anticipating what the person may say, that you could use during the interview. And in preparing these questions, you must make references to Turkle's essay. In other words, I want to see that you read the essay, that you're not just making these very general questions that you could make about technology without reading the essay. So I want you to refer to specific statements that she makes, specific people she discusses, or other ideas that she specifically covers in her text. And the question should be clear, should be detailed, should be a little bit longer. Here's an example I came up with one just to show you what I mean. Here's an open-ended question. In your essay, you used the example of Hope, whose husband would call every half hour while the two of them were hiking to check in on his wife. How does this habit of constantly checking in on others through calls, texts, etc. affect the concept of privacy and of being alone, right? So you're taking something that she said in the essay. She gives the example of Hope and her husband, and you're taking that, you're giving a little background, and then you're adding your question. How does the habit of constantly checking blah, blah, blah? And notice it's an open-ended question. It starts with how, which allows for many responses. So once you have that open-ended question, then think of what the person may say, or what's another kind of a follow-up question. What's something related to the issue you could also ask? Here's my follow-up question. How does the fact that we're always in touch affect our relationships with our loved ones, such as our boyfriends, girlfriends, or our parents, our kids, right? Because in this example, this was a husband and a wife, so I kind of developed this idea a little bit more. So again, you should have 5 open-ended questions and 5 follow-up questions, a total of 10 questions, clear, detailed, making references to the text to help you practice these, strategies. Also, make sure you avoid, make sure your questions are not leading, etc. All these things we talked about in class. And again, this is due Friday at midnight. Okay, and this is almost the end. The last slide I have for you is this one. Extra credit opportunity. I'm actually curious how many of you are watching these videos. They're usually not long, and I do want you to watch them. So to check how many of you are actually watching them, please send me an email with the following subject line. Dr. K's video lectures are the best. Okay, just say that. You don't have to say anything else. You can if you want. But if you put that in the subject line and make sure your name is there so I know who wrote me, I'm going to give you automatically 5 extra credit points. That's not bad. That's not too shabby. I may throw in these little extra credit opportunities in my lectures now to kind of get a sense of who's watching them, to reward those of you that are watching them. So over the semester, you can accumulate quite a few extra credit points. Okay? So thanks a lot. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. I hope your interviews are going well. If you are having trouble scheduling them, any other issues, you should let me know as soon as possible. I'll see you next week.